is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Welcome to the Morgan Man Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Stacy Morgan. Here on the Morgan Man Sports Podcast, we talk Atlanta Falcons news, pre-game predictions, and all other news surrounding the Atlanta Falcons.
Touchdown, Atlanta!
Also on the podcast, we talk Call of Duty League, esports, covering Roster Mania, major predictions, COD champs, player trades, and much more to get you ready for every single CDL weekend.
Scuff goes through, and Scuff snaps, wins the one-on-one in optic with the reverse sweep.
If that sounds good with you, put on your Falcons jersey, grab your gaming headset, and let's get this show started. What is going on, you guys? I'm your host, Stacy Morgan, and you're listening to the Morgan Man Sports Podcast here on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on YouTube. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are talking about the Atlanta Falcons and their joyfulness and excitement for this defense, as it's coming from a Sports Illustrated article reading today that the Atlanta Falcons defensive architect is pleased with early results. So without any further delay, let's go get straight into today's action. So all credit goes to sportsillustrated.com. I will have the article linked below for you guys to check it out for yourselves on sportsillustrated.com. But the Atlanta Falcons defensive architect is pleased with early returns. Falcons general manager made it a priority this offseason to address several defensive deficiencies. The Atlanta Falcons have struggled on their defensive side of the ball during the 2024 season. Atlanta generated little to no pass rush, recording just 31 sacks all season, the second lowest in the NFL. The secondary struggled as well, giving up the league's highest catch rate last season. General Manager Terry Fontenot did his best to address both issues this offseason. The Falcons added 3 new faces to their pass rush corps via free agency and the draft. Atlanta Falcons signed defensive end Leonard Floyd to a 1-year, $10 million contract in free agency. Jalen Walker, a linebacker out of Georgia, and James Pierce Jr., a defensive end out of Tennessee, were added through the draft, both selected in the first round. The secondary was also addressed. Atlanta drafted Notre Dame safety Xavier Watts in the 3rd round and nickel back Billy Bowman in the 4th. Atlanta has a lot of new faces competing for starting spots headed into the 2025 season, and Fontenot is confident in their abilities to force turnovers and hunt the ball. And I quote, "Very confident in the defense," Fontenot said. "It kind of showed yesterday in practice. So yesterday's practice was an example of the way we're on the ball. Mike Hughes had 2 punch-outs, and I mean legit punch-outs, the way he went after the ball. So now you can praise the defense for being able to get to after the ball and take it away and punch it out." Tenured veteran left tackle Jake Matthews, who's gone against the best of the best edge rushers in the NFL, is excited to see what Jalen Walker and James Pierce has in store. And a quote, "They got a lot of talent. You can see yesterday they were drafted where they were." Matthews said, "It's great for me too. It's fun coming out here and playing against really good players, seeing where you're at, building this thing to the type of competition we're going to see every Sunday." Matthews said he's especially seen the 2 rookies display speed and power. James Pierce Jr. specifically had an impressive showing on day 3 of training camp. On Sunday, Pierce had back-to-back impact making plays. First by stealing the edge on a run play and then elevating on the next to knock down a Kirk Cousins pass attempt. And a quote, "He doesn't need a whole lot of speed to get him going," defense coordinator Jeff Ulbrich said of Pierce last spring. "We could put him on the edge and let him rip it, and he's going to be a problem. I'm super excited for what he'll become." Atlanta has added a lot of defensive side to this ball during this past offseason and is hopeful it pans out and leads to the team's first postseason berth since 2017. So the optimism and the results are showing at the Atlanta Falcons training camp, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, that was the SI.com article for the Atlanta Falcons. Again, link will be down in the description for you guys to check that out. So I'm excited for that. That really excites me, especially blocking a Kirk Cousins pass, being the veteran quarterback that he is. Yes, he's taking reps at QB2, but still, he's a veteran at the end of the day. And whenever you're knocking off the veteran in training camp, you're doing something right. You really are. And where Jalen Walker and James Pierce getting drafted from, it shows at this training camp. So the Falcons definitely had a great draft this year. And I think they're going to have a great season this year. And hopefully, again, a playoff berth for the first time since 2017, which will be now 8 years since then, which is honestly crazy in my opinion, to go that long without a playoff appearance. But hey, we was going through some weird times with contract negotiations, extensions with Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, you name it. I mean, we couldn't afford to pay any other player outside of just Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. And yes, them two talents were great in their own right, don't get me wrong. But Thomas Dimitroff and, of course, their agencies, Julio's and Matt Ryan's, definitely brought the bag home for sure for their players and themselves. And like I said, Thomas Dimitroff and the Falcons couldn't afford to pay anybody, not even the league minimum. And that was crazy for the Atlanta Falcons back then. But Arthur Blank finally stepped up and realized it and fired both Dan Quinn and Thomas Dimitroff. The Dan Quinn thing, I felt like could have went on another year. Because me thinking, honestly, that whole situation was not Dan Quinn's fault. That was more Thomas Dimitroff not being able to sign players because we're so tied up to Matt Ryan and Julio Jones that it was eating our cap space up alive just so crazy. Like, I believe one year we had a negative cap space. Like, we had no free agency. We actually had to let players go and still was in the negative. And someone can fact check that for sure. But I believe we was in the negative and still having to let players go or trade them for just player for player, not even, a draft pick, no nothing. I mean, it was just player for player, or we're just letting, players go. And so we definitely had a very rough final season with Dimitroff and Quinn. And then, of course, we all know about the Fontenot and Smith situation for sure, which Terry Fontenot is still here. Terry Fontenot has definitely got us out of what they call in the NFL cap space hell, for sure, and has definitely signed quality players to this roster, to this team, for dirt cheap under a 2-3 year contract. But Fontenot definitely loves these 1 year prove it deals. Like, all right, we'll give you $10 million for one season. You got to prove your worthiness selling this team for another 2-3 more years. That's how Fontenot is looking at it. So I definitely applaud him on that. And he's definitely won the hearts of many on the general manager side. But now we got to get the head coaching spot right. And I said this last season. I'm still going to say it this offseason. I think we found our head coach. Yes, we did not go to the playoffs last season. Yes, there was a controversial, call under Raheem Morris where he didn't call a timeout or didn't kick a field goal. I forget the specifics of the situation, but it, basically Raheem costed us the game by not. It was either not calling a timeout or kicking a field goal. I forget what it is, but we had a lot more wins than what we did with Arthur Smith or Dan Quinn outside of that 2017 season. So you guys sit here and really look at it, ladies and gentlemen. I think Raheem Morris is our answer with Michael Penix Jr. at the helm. I really do. So let me know what you guys think on Twitter, on Facebook, YouTube, everywhere where you get your podcast listening and social media interactions from. Definitely want to hear what you guys have to say about the Atlanta Falcons with their draft class and their training camp going forward. But guys, next week the Atlanta Falcons play football. So I am super excited about that. And hopefully I should be doing a live stream that day. So I'm not going to make too much of a racket about it. I'm going to do some testing here and there. We recently switched hosts at the network, and they have a live stream feature for like audio only podcasts. So definitely that helps me out. And I could potentially start going live before game day or like game time and, do the analysis, whatever. So definitely keep your fingers crossed on that it works out. And of course, you'll know when I do something live, it'll pop up on the feed or wherever you are getting your podcast from. So, but guys, I sure hope you did enjoy. If you did, make sure to like button wherever you are listening from: iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on the Belly Up Sports YouTube page. Make sure you are subscribing right there. But until then, Good Morgan. We'll catch you all later. Peace.
Thank you for listening to this Belly Up Sports Podcast Network product. Some said we go belly up, so we made it our name, and we're still here.